What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the One More Rep podcast. I'm your host. My name is j.pirch. With me this time, my good friend Austin Brown. Before we get rolling, guys, please subscribe to the YouTube channel, like the video, leave us a comment, share it around, send it to a friend, and ring the bell. That way, you're notified every time the channel posts a new video. Besides the podcast, I'm doing weekly prep updates on the YouTube channel as well. So check those out if you haven't already. Austin Brown, how you doing, man?
I'm good, brother. How's prep going for you?
It's good. It's good. It's a
Easy
totally
so far.
different like mental. What's that?
Easy so far.
Nice and easy. Yeah, it's a big relief. Like basically every time I've checked in, my food has gotten pulled down a little bit. Like we're kind of going about it. I would say pretty aggressive. I mean, I had told him I wanted to start aggressively and I want to be ready early. So
Yeah,
um, things are moving quick and it's just been not, I'm still not anywhere near hungry, but every time the food comes down, it's just a little bit more of a relief that it's less food to have to eat. It's less time spending, like eating and cooking. So,
you're still in
um,
that phase then. That's good. Because your
yeah,
face, everything's like tightening up already, or you're looking tighter.
I'm definitely tighter and I feel better about how I look. I mean, I'm obviously not
Yeah,
contest prep shredded, but just like that initial wave of just like GI inflammation and a
that
couple
feels
pounds of
so.
fat, good wave of waters. Like I feel okay taking my shirt off now, like at home
Yeah,
here.
yeah.
So
You're not
um,
bloated all the time.
no, not at all. No, I feel like a pretty tight stomach most of the day, which is just a nice. It's just a nice spot to be in. Training feels like I'm full blown off season, and I have no problem like going and doing even from having a break because he pulled cardio completely for a good bit of the end of the off season in my cruise. So it was almost like I was kind of looking forward to getting back into that. And we have it made because we have a stairmaster here at the house, so it's very easy to stay in a morning routine where I go and do it fasted in the morning, and we have a an
That's
ab
excellent.
ab machine out there to do like leg raises on, so we have like a just a good little situation to stay on routine, and it's been good. I've been tanning too, as you could tell. I got the
Yeah, you
melanotan
look
going,
dark.
so
Yeah,
it's been good. I feel like I'm into the swing of prep, and just mentally, I've made it a point to just be excited about that and be grateful that I get to do this and I'm in this I have this opportunity to do this right now because I can remember being in the depths of the off season and being like, fuck, man, I can't wait to diet. So I'm trying to keep that same energy. It's like, man, I was excited about this then. I'm going to keep that same excitement about it now that I'm here.
absolutely. No, that's a fun spot to be in, man. You kind of like
Yeah.
start feeling that that narrowed focus like coming in,
Yeah.
and you're like every day is looking very similar, and you're doing these
Yes.
things that you weren't doing before, like the melanotan, and you got your little prep,
Yeah, your
schedule
little
out,
rituals and schedule, like
rituals. Yeah, it
like
feels
you
good,
go
man.
and you do the melanotan and you physically go out to tan on your rest days. I have a posing practice schedule that I've adhered to and been strict with myself, which I've never started this far out. Usually, even the times that it's been best, it's been 12 weeks out, 10 weeks out, something like that. You start really hammering it.
Yeah,
I haven't really ever started it this far out. So
that'll pay
um,
dividends, man. I love that.
yeah, I think it will. Obviously from like a preparedness, like your how prepared you are on stage to perform. But a lot of the old time guys have talked about like posing your conditioning in and like getting different body parts to come in because they're constantly flexed and posed. So we'll see. I think it'll be good.
I mean, just that's yeah. After you do a truly hard posing session, that's way harder than a cardio session for
I was
me.
sweating my ass. I did one today. I have so my schedule right now is Monday is a rest day for me. I have posing practice. Tuesday, I have an upper day. Immediately post workout, I come home from the gym and pose hard then. And Thursday, I have an off day. I pose hard. Friday, I have an upper day. I pose hard. So 4 times a week, either a rest day or an upper day. And by the time I'm done, I'm sweating.
And you're wore out.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm
Yeah, man.
sweating and then I'm like ready to eat too, which is like I said, which is nice. Like
Nice.
it's been a long time since I sit down for a meal and I'm like, okay, this is
Let's get
I'm
it.
ready to do this. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. No, I
So
like that, man. I will prescribe X amount. Like I prescribe posing practice just like I prescribe cardio because
mm.
to standardize that output. So I will
So
have
what are you
guys.
telling guys? Are you saying like, 3 sessions of 3 rounds each or something like that?
Yeah, it will be like post upper body day, X amount of rounds for X amount of time held per
Oh,
pose,
per shot? Okay.
And then X amount of rest in between rounds.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
and that'll
I
kind
like
of
that. I've never standardized that. So give me an example. How long, what's like are you having them do 10-second holds? How much of a rest?
yeah, probably like anywhere about like that 12-week out mark. I'll start them just at like 2 rounds of like 5 seconds, and then I will basically
Okay.
like ramp that up pretty quick. Like each week, add a round, and then like 8 seconds, like 3 rounds, 8 seconds, and then by like
Mm.
10 or 9 weeks out, we're doing like 4 rounds of 10-second holds with like a minute to 2 minutes in between rounds for you
Okay.
know.
So you
Mhm.
won't have them. So that's one thing that I was gonna or point out or ask about is that they are resting in between rounds. Because I've done up to 3 rounds so far, and I've tried to make them continuous, almost as though I'm just in a long call out. And fuck, dude, it's tough.
Yeah, so then I will do like I will start having calls with them a little closer, and I will run them through like a simulatory
Yeah.
prejudging where I will call random shots and have one shot for 15 seconds and the next for 5, and so
Yeah,
on.
yeah.
I
Yeah,
like
because
that.
you need to be able to hold like in terms of the long holds, there's a couple poses that you need to be able to just lock in. And the main one is your front relaxed.
Relaxed. You're going to be in that
Yeah,
pose 70% of the time on stage.
yeah, yeah.
But I think the reason I like to give the rest is earlier on, like especially like focus on the accuracy of the pose. Because if you're
Yes.
just chucking through 3 rounds and you're not an advanced person who's like nailing each shot and you're just doing it to like do it, it's gonna get sloppy, right? So like a pose is only as good as if we're hitting it, properly.
Yeah.
So,
No,
uh,
I'm totally that makes total sense to me. I mean, it's a similar concept to why we rest after training. Like it's like you rest until you're ready to go because you want to get the most out of this set. It's not a race. It's not a race to get there.
exactly. Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
Yeah. I like that. I'm gonna implement something like that. What I've been doing is I just will go. So I have a couple sessions that I do 3 round on my rest days. I'll do 3 rounds. I'm trying to do the before we spoke, I was trying to do them consecutively, but now that you said, I will probably take a bit of a breather in between.
Mhm.
Um, and those 3 rounds are more at like a prejudging speed.
Yeah.
Like I'm trying to simulate how I think it might feel on stage, like getting into it quickly, like being the first one into it. And then the days that I train or the days that I pose after my training, I will only do 2 rounds, but they're longer holds. So right now I've been doing 10-second holds, which
10's really good. Yeah.
it's a motherfucker right now
No,
for the
a
shape that
true
I'm
10
in.
is yeah, I mean a true 10-second hold if you're nailing a shot, it's tough. And like I won't
Especially
have
for
guys
guys like
go,
us, we had some of the
yeah,
vacuums in some of the front shots. So it's like, man, I'll go the toughest part of all of it is just the first three. Like if you think about how a prejudging would start, right? Like you do your 4 quarter turns, but then you come back to the front. It's front relaxed, front double, front lat, all three in a row. And it's like I kind of vacuum all three of them.
yeah, that's why I always have that like plan B for my vacuum shots because if
Yeah.
you're in like a fifth round of a prejudging, they call a shot and you feel that vacuum like it's physically not able to be performed, you have to have another, a go because if you
You have
try
to
to
have something set because it looks totally different now. And everything that you've practiced and every photo that you've seen of yourself in
yeah,
that shot with it pulled up, if you're like breathing in and out of it and it's like your
it's
chest has
fast.
caved, it does not look good. Like you don't look like
Vacuum
you have a taper anymore.
No, dude, a vacuum can be like an extreme weapon, but if you like semi vacuum and like it's halfway and
Yeah.
it'll like kill your look, man.
Yes. Yeah.
I've done
You end up
it.
you end up looking like you have that like turtle shell belly, which is not good.
It's just like bizarre. Like you're not
Yes.
contracted, but you're not vacuumed.
And
It's just
you're
kind
and you're
of
fighting for your life up there, dude. I've been there where you're fighting for your life trying to pull the air back in, and it's like this
I
is
don't
just
got
not
it.
happening. What I've been trying to do is more so and I think as I get leaner, I'll be able to do this. Right now, it doesn't look great, but I'm more so in my front relax instead of an actual vacuum where I'm like pulling it under. I'm kind of just lifting my ribs
Elongating.
and breathing through my chest and just kind of keeping this sucked, like even keeping this
Yeah.
pulled in, because it's
I
way more sustainable. Like if I do get into, where they're moving other people around and I'm holding that for 40 seconds, like how am I gonna do this if I'm holding my breath and pulling a vacuum under my abs?
No, because if you're peeled, right, and you just elongate your torso and you like kind of cue that belly button back, like there's going
Yeah.
to be a ton of detail. You don't have to rip
Yes.
true vacuum.
Yeah.
Uh,
It
yeah,
almost gives it that cool, like I think of almost like Dennis Wolf, the way that he would like just
absolutely.
lift his rib cage and you see an ab column. It's not like the stomach has sucked away and you can't see it at all. It's almost and like Luke Sandow, rest in
Yeah,
peace to him, that at the end of his career started doing almost this half vacuum, like you said, where it's just elongated and then like you see a detailed ab column down the middle of it. And it's actually a pretty cool look.
yeah. Wolf's a really good example of that. I
Yeah.
always in my
He's the
like,
best, dude.
I'm a huge fan. I mean,
Yeah.
he's like our type of bodybuilder, tall,
100%. Yeah.
athletic. So
Tall,
yeah,
white. Yeah.
he would be really he would probably win now the direction the league is going.
Man, is there anybody that is like a
More
better
aesthetic.
combination of all of the things that they want? Like, him and Samson, I think, would have some duels because
Yeah,
Dennis kind of struggled to get like the real gnarly glutes as well. Like he was always just bringing such an awesome level of like fullness, I think was his game. Um, Similar to Samson. So I think it would be interesting to see them go head to head and then how they might strategize against each other. Like would that, going against Samson, would Dennis try to bring better conditioning and bring the glutes and then maybe it's not
right.
quite as full and crazy round? Who
That
knows,
was his thing. Like he would prep on like very high food because he had to play
Yes.
that game of like, yeah,
Oh yeah.
he could get his glutes in very easily. You see pictures of him now like living life and he's like literally 6% body fat,
I
right?
know. Yeah.
Yeah, but like he could get there, but it like at the cost of like a lot of pop, right?
Right,
And so
right.
he
A
was
cost
always
of like I can remember there are times that he had them. I shouldn't have said that he struggled with them. It's just I
but
think a
then
lot
he
of
was
times he just chose
small.
not to.
Yeah, because
And
he
you would
was
see the arms not look nearly the same. And you would see like he's so known for his quad sweep, but it would be noticeably down. If his glutes were dug out, the
no.
quad sweep was noticeably down. And then it kind of throws off the X, right? The whole look to it.
Yeah.
Like I can remember he worked with Milos, and it might have been his Olympia debut, and he was like fifth or fourth or something. And
Mhm.
to this day, I've heard Milos talk several times on a podcast about what it took to like bring that look. And it was some crazy insulin protocol with like thousands and thousands and thousands
So
of
much
grams of
food.
carbs. Yeah, crazy, obscene amount of food. And he looked spectacular. You know what I mean? So it's like I would take that look over like the most dug out glutes on stage 10 out of 10 times when you look like that, when you have that shape.
If everything else is just saran wrapped, right? So it's like
That's what I mean. Every other body part where it's like every other fiber was on command, like
just
the
nuts.
chest fibers, like he stepped on the quad and it's like the rect fem up to the hip is striated, like where it's like, holy shit, this is some crazy stuff. So,
Yeah.
um, but all right, we could probably talk bodybuilding and the history of bodybuilding all night. Let's do some questions. I still have questions from the last time that I asked for them. So shout out to everybody that wrote in.
Yes.
Um, Start with like a basic kind of fan bodybuilding one. Do you think that they should have a category or an option where they compare the 212 Olympia winner to the Open Olympia winner?
No. I mean, I don't. I mean, like there's a reason for the division and
Right.
the separation and you see guys like some 212 guys rock into an open show a few weeks after the Olympia, at 220 or whatever, and Cleary has done it a bunch and stuff and like yeah, I mean, if they want to do the open, but if not, I don't ever see that really being a time where I don't know. It's just like that's the allure of it. It's like Keon, right? He's like,
Right.
it's like, people speculate, is he better than, Samson now? It's like, well, let's find out. Like,
Well, go earn your spot is the way that I
yeah,
think
don't
about it.
find out because it's like if they do that and he like won it, right? Like, would he do the Open the next year? Would he do,
Right.
or would he do? It's like just like make him find out the right way, So,
That's it.
which I would love to
Go earn
see
your
that.
spot.
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, that would be a little bit like I kind of hate some of the stuff they do at like the Olympia, and they've gotten away from it a little bit, but it's like a little WWE, right? Like it's kind of produced.
Yes.
They used to do like the shot for shot. You remember that and stuff?
Yes. Yeah.
Like,
Challenge
and like,
round. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, with like Triple H, like,
Yes.
that's just kind of like cheesy to me. So I feel like it would kind of fall in that category. But that's to each their own. I'm sure some people would appreciate it, but that's just
I
my
think that
stance.
question probably that might stem from like the whole Arnold era where they would have I
Sure,
can
and they
think of
did
like
that then, right?
Arnold against Franco because he won like I guess it was the tall division or the short division for Franco or whatever. There was
Yeah.
some separation.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm with you. I really wouldn't care to see this because then it's like, okay, yeah, if Keon does beat Samson, like, okay, so then is he just a lock to win the Open next year? Like,
Right.
it's that's how it should be. Then you're telling us he's the best bodybuilder on planet Earth. Like, if that's the case, then why didn't he go stand with the rest of them in the Open? Like, it's not. It's not that you get to beat a bunch of 212-pound, like, you know, no disrespect, those guys are incredible, but it's like this is not the best lineup in the world. So like you basically get to beat a JV lineup and then go stand next to the best. Like the guy that was fifth in the Open lineup didn't get to stand next to Samson and be compared. So why do you get to? Like you weren't even in this lineup. So
That's a good way
I
to put it. I like that stance too. Yeah,
I
it's
don't
just
like it. Like
I
if
don't
you
think
want
they
your
would like it
chance,
either.
what's that?
I said I don't think the athlete would particularly care for that either.
No, no.
They'd be
Like
like,
if I'm
dude, I'm
Samson,
done.
like no, like get in line. Like there's a
I
whole line
won
of
my
guys that want to
Olympia,
be.
and let me
Yeah.
go.
Well, then it's like from Samson's perspective, like we're just using him as the example of the Open winner. Like, what do you mean you get to compare next to me? There's a whole line of guys that like go get in line. Like I just took out everybody. Like you want
Yeah.
a chance to stand next to me, go get in line with the rest of them. Like
And it's kind of like he has everything to lose, right? Like he
right, he's
like
got
has
nothing to
everything
gain.
to, yeah.
No, he's got nothing to gain. He's got nothing to gain at all. And Keon's got nothing to lose. So it's like, okay, then and it's also silly to me, like, okay, if you're Keon and you're going to do the 212 lineup, but then say that you get to stand next to Samson and get crowned the best bodybuilder in the world, like that might be true, but Samson's laughing all the way to the bank because he just won 600 grand and you just won 40 or whatever it is. Like, if you're the best, go stand with the big boys and take home a big check.
That's what I'm saying, dude. If I'm him, I'm going up all day because like 10th place probably makes more money.
Yeah.
And he
Man, and
would
seeing how spectacular he looked, like, and this is none of this is a personal knock on Keon or Samson or any of it. Like that, we're just using those two guys as the most recent examples. But if we're gonna talk about him, I think that should be the move. Like
I
it's cool to
wholeheartedly agree.
win and have like a legacy. Like I've heard Flex Lewis talk about how like he takes a lot of pride. He says like when he meets people out, if he meets like someone that isn't necessarily involved in bodybuilding, he'll introduce himself like as like 6 times undefeated Mr. Olympia. And it's like, okay, that's your prerogative, but also like those that know like you were never Mr. Olympia. Like you were the 212 Olympia champion. It's a different thing.
Yeah.
Um, so I mean, it's like when you look at Derek's the perfect example, right? Like he won the 212 and then still continued to rise and eventually won the Open. So that should be Keon's next step, I think. Like when you look at what he brought to the Olympia last year, and I've heard, I don't know if it's true, that I've heard he's like well under the weight cap,
I think it
dude.
was 10 pounds. I think
Like
it was like
I was gonna say
202.
202 is what I heard. Dude,
Yeah.
let the governor off and bring him in at 215 this year and let him go wrestle with the big guys.
I mean, he smokes Derek.
Does he?
Yeah.
Does he smoke hottie?
Yeah, oh yeah. Hottie's on his way out. He's gonna. I think we're
I
gonna see age keep catch up to Hottie this year.
think this is the year.
This is the year.
Okay. All right.
This is the year he slips.
But it is it those two guys especially are perfect examples of why he should take the leap.
Yeah, because
Like
they're short.
we know well, they were 212 guys and they were
Yeah,
very good 212 guys, but we know, especially Hottie, we know Hottie's name and talk about him as being an international superstar because of his prowess in the open lineup.
period.
Yeah. So it would be great to see. I mean, I think just as a fan too, you just want to see the best physiques compared with each other and not as like some gimmick thing that they do at the end of the show. Like I want to see all the chips in the middle and let's see how Keon looks compared to some of these guys. Cause that look that he brought last year was like one of the
That was
craziest looks you've ever seen.
that was one of those looks when they walk out for that first look, you just go, "Holy
I just
fuck!"
laughed. I can remember
Oh,
just laughing and being like, this is how this kid looks right now.
you like saw like X amount of people come out before him, and it was like, even though he was by himself, it was just like an entirely different sized human being walk out, and then he hits the first shot, and the conditioning is just like,
Bro,
whoa.
the conditioning, the shape, like the shape of the muscle bellies, like the shape of his structure. Like when he does this thing where he pulls the vacuum first and then like opens his arms for the front double, and it's
Oof.
like it's like the waist is non-existent, dude, and he's so wide. So yeah, I would love to see it, but in a lineup that matters. I don't want to see it as part of a gimmick. Um, Will including fat in your post workout meal prevent the absorption of carbohydrates rapidly post workout, therefore hindering recovery?
No, I mean it's going to slow digestion to a degree, but if the calories need to be there, you're going to need to allocate some fat to your post workout meal at the end of the day. And like, especially say, you're like a large population of people, that might be your final meal of the night. Like, slowing that digestion is fine. Like, guys, we don't just like lose our nitrogen retention like during one session. We're not just bottomed out to zero. Like the food you've consumed throughout the day over the last month, that's all still going to work, while we're after that training session. So it's filling that gas tank up, but like it doesn't have to be carbs and fast carbs and fast protein only. Like slowing that down is not going to hinder your uh, recovery whatsoever. If anything, it might be of benefit based on the time of day you're training. So it's
I
definitely not
I've
block any type of absorption.
I've had these questions obviously for a bit, so I could think about how I was going to answer, what the circumstance was. That was the exact scenario in my mind that I thought, you know what, it might actually be a benefit to have fats in your post workout meal. Like if you train and then come home, shower, eat a meal, and go to bed, there better be some fats in that meal, especially like, we're talking about like in like a off season surplus situation, like there better be fats in that meal.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah, if
now,
anything, I'm going to avoid the fats pre-workout because
yes.
I don't want to have 20 grams of fat in my pre-workout meal and then it just be chilling there while I'm trying to lift. Like
Well,
that's
that you don't want the brick of like a whole food chicken and rice, beef and rice meal sitting in your stomach while you're trying to train.
that's
And
what I
then in
mean.
most scenarios, trying to force an intra shake on top of it. Like, I don't think that's appropriate in any situation other than you're starving at the tail end of a contest prep. That's when I think fats pre-workout makes sense, where this person may potentially go hypo during their training.
In a deficit period, I think
Otherwise,
that's good application. Yeah.
yes. No, but I totally agree. I think we don't have to think about things where this can only be like immediate carb and protein, and we have to skip the fat entirely. And I think it depends on how and where it fits in your whole setup. Like for me, I usually go train after meal one or meal two. So as part of my whole grand scheme of things, I do have just an immediate shake that's just fast carbs and fast protein, but that fits with the rest of my day. If I was eating or training at night and then having one meal and going to bed, I would have fats in it.
Yeah, exactly.
Deep in prep, is it smarter to train more days but spread volume out for recovery?
Not necessarily. No. It's just volume as a total picture. You could
Yes.
train as I'm not going to say as an extreme example. You could train one day because you're like the likelihood of fitting all your volume into that day productively is very low. But like 3 days versus 7 days in the gym, like there, as long as total volume and recoverability, that's what's important. So we've answered a similar question before. Manage the total volume appropriately. The training days doesn't necessarily make sense. If anything, you're going to learn to really appreciate those non-training days in prep, and that rest is that fatigue management. It's important, and it also is just from a time management perspective. Like, I don't know what you do for a living. If you don't do anything, and you want to do that, then yeah, by all means, that's fine. Keep yourself busy, but you're going to volume per session. If you're training like a lot of days a week, it's going to be very low, especially, towards that end of prep, because recoverability is just not there. So, yeah.
That's very, very well said. In short, or to summarize, you can't trick physiology at the end of the day. Like, you can game this however you want, and you think like, oh, if I go more frequently, I can do less volume per session. At the end of the day, like, you can recover what you can recover from across a week, per your gear, per your output, per your food, per what your body fat is. So to me, the biggest thing is, if you're on track to be in like stellar stage conditioning, you said it best. You're going to cherish your rest days. They might seem boring during the off season, or like you have to force yourself to stay out of the gym, you know, during the off season or during prep. I've heard some people say that to me. At all parts of the year, I look forward to a day off. Like, I think if you're training really hard, like, and you don't look forward to just a day off from the gym, then I don't know,
When people
maybe.
tell me that, that's my first thought. You're not training hard enough.
Exactly. Yeah. Like, I can't really ever see training more than 3 consecutive days. As someone that's like fairly like intermediate to advanced and pretty strong, and like really getting after it. I don't know, like by day 3. So I train like on like a 5-day split. So I have, 2 on, 1 off, and then 3 on, 1 off to link up with the days of the week. That tail end of the week where I have a third consecutive workout,
You're dead.
I usually don't want to go to the gym on that day. And
No, three's a lot.
my discipline, drags me there. But it's not like I've had to program it intentionally to where that's mostly like isolation, like arms and side delts as part of my upper day, more so than like big back and chest movements, because I don't really feel like going. And I honestly, I have a big leg day the day before. I kind of feel weaker on some of those third days in a row.
Yeah, that could lead into so many other conversations and points. But yeah, man, I mean, you should probably look at your training accuracy and intensity if you're like finding yourself want to go to the gym. It's like all the fucking time.
Yeah.
Even if you're, you know, gassed to the gills with, food and juice, it's like, because your intensity should match that increase. So like
Right.
your level of being fucked when you're cruising and your level of being fucked when you're lasting should be kind of similar.
It should.
Yeah.
It should all be appropriate. So absolutely. I don't think that you can outsmart what you can recover from. I get the idea on paper, like, again, like, oh, instead of spending 2 hours in the gym when I'm in a deficit, like, I'll just spread it out evenly over the week and it'll be 45-minute sessions, but I'm there 6 days in a row. And it's like, I think one of the biggest tools in contest prep for most people is a full day off from the gym.
Bro, how many times do you see, you take an off day and, output's reduced? It may have foods maybe lower, but you kind of sit around and chill out a little bit. You have that big 3-4 pound drop and wake up nasty. Like, that is a huge piece of the fatigue management
Yeah.
and stress management and prep, which at the end of the day, you could probably put that up there as one of the most important, things to manage throughout a contest prep. So you run yourself into too deep of a hole and sleep's going to be deranged and performance will fall off the end. So like, you know,
Right.
it
Right.
had
We're
this,
talking about like
but
performance not being as like at that point, you're just going in and going through the motions probably. So then we're talking about like making your recovery worse with little return for your efforts. And then you're further digging a hole that's going to make your sleep worse. And it's just like this never ending cycle.
yeah. And you'll have no idea it even happens before it does. And then so
And people that are like this are, I think there are people that are used to just being like chronically overworked and fatigued, and they just like that's just part
yeah.
of their day.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Every female athlete ever. So
But
yeah.
they can take it though. That's why.
Well, they turn into machines. They can
Yeah.
you give them 90 minutes cardio, they have no problem, and then I'll go to
Yeah.
my job where I
They
work.
don't complain. Yeah. Yeah.
No, because their body is stuck in literally a defense
Yeah.
state, and it's
Yeah.
a machine.
And that's just become normal. And that's just become like how what they think. Like, you ask them, oh, how do you feel? Well, that it yesterday didn't feel any worse than the day
Well,
before because it
yeah, it's
all
like,
just feels bad. So
and that's they don't know how to give feedback because their feedback is like, oh, it's all a blur. I'm just checking the
yeah,
boxes.
just going about it. Yeah.
Yeah, but then that's where internal, dysregulation is of, it's happening rapidly, right? So
Here's one. Is it valid reasoning to use 1 to 2 IUs of Humalog, pre-fasted cardio to drop BG or not worth it?
yeah, I mean, this is kind of an old school, method.
Yeah.
If you're in a deficit, like your fasted blood glucose is probably hopefully going to be highest, like low 80s. And 5 minutes into that cardio session, it's going to be in the 60s. So like, no, this is not a great practice, especially if other lipolytics are in place. Like it's dangerous, and B, like your blood glucose is already very much so in a space where, and nothing about low blood glucose and fat burning necessarily those aren't necessarily correlated to a high degree. So like, no, it's definitely not something I would entertain the thought of. Like that's overthinking it. I would put that in the overthinking basket and just kind of, but yeah, I mean, you used to see this a lot. I've done it. But I kind of put it in the camp of like injectable L-carnitine. Like it's just kind of, and I saw your post on this the other day too. I'm of the same camp. So it's just, there's plenty of other things at work here. And surely we could get the job done with those. And this is definitely something that's just, it doesn't even really make sense, honestly.
No, the perfect way to put it is that this goes in to the overthinker's trash basket and stays there forever, never to be heard from again. I
That's it.
think that this is a silly, potentially dangerous way of trying to outthink hard work.
Yeah. You're going to feel like you're getting more out of it because you're going to feel like shit.
You're going to feel like you're on the verge of death because you are.
Yeah. So
I've done this twice, and there's not many things in my lifetime that I've done so few times and then immediately discarded as never to
useless.
do it again.
Yeah.
Yes.
Have fun with that cardio session when you're hypo.
Right. And have fun having to lower the output that you planned on doing to begin
That's
with.
what I'm saying. You're not going to be able to exit. So honestly, you're probably going to make out in the negative here. So,
bro, take your T3, take your clan. Like
take your caffeine.
We're thinking about being in contest prep. Take your plan, your T3. Like you said, some caffeine. Get on the stairs and fucking work your ass off and go earn it. Like this is just one of those things that's just way, way drawn out in terms of like trying to biohack and all this stuff. Like, dude, I can remember being on the stairs one time after doing this and being like, am I gonna die? Am I gonna make it back home in time to eat? Like this was fucking stupid.
Yeah, and now what? You got to put in 25 carbs from a fucking banana, and now you're 100 carbs deep or 100
Right.
calories into your day that you just
Right.
wasted trying to burn on the fucking Stairmaster. It's like, yeah,
That, and then it's like, okay, now I just put down my meal one, and then in an hour I'm hungry again, where
I'm
this
feeling
wasn't
hyped on
happening
you.
before. Yeah. Yeah. And it
It's not.
sounds like it sounds like it's a negligible amount, like one or two I use, but when it's put in this context, it goes so much for, like you said, like especially if you have any momentum in your contest prep at all, dude. By the time you are 5 minutes into that morning fasted cardio, he said specifically before fasted cardio, by the time you're 5 minutes into this, your blood glucose is in the 60s. Why do you need it to be any lower?
Mm-mm.
You don't.
Yeah.
Like just work hard on the cardio that you're doing and let's not overthink it. It's funny because I know the guy that asked this too, and it's not a guy that's like a stranger to hard work. So I think this is just a perfect example of someone that's overthinking it and trying
Yeah.
to, like, you're trying to get 110% out of something, like
Yeah.
just get 100. Like let's not
Yeah.
let's not step over dollars to pick up pennies, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great way to put it.
Thoughts on protein consumption. Do we need 1 gram per pound, or is it causing unnecessary GI stress?
I would the latter part of that question is my minimum I would put in for someone unless you're rather obese. Um, if you're not fat, I like that as a minimum. I do think there's a line with, especially in the off season, like with digestibility. Um, I will prefer to go a little higher protein actually in a prep circumstance for the satiability of it. Um, but yeah, I mean, I do think a lot of people eat too much protein, and I think it does cause a lot of GI stress. But that's I'm talking 2.5 grams a pound type
That's a
of
lot.
numbers,
Fuck, that's a fuck
right?
ton.
Yeah, or two at least 2 grams. But though because you used to hear that a lot, two
Yeah.
grams per pound, and like
Yeah.
that's gonna fuck you. Like, have fun with that. You're just eating expensive carbs at that point, to me. Um,
How are you calculating this? Are you going off like stage weight or current weight or?
Yeah, so I would say like if someone's under 15% body fat from an eye analysis, I'm going off their true weight.
Okay.
Um, if they're over that, I'm probably going to do a bit of a calculation of like a lean body mass.
Yeah.
So if they're like 20 plus, percent, I'm probably going to do some form of a lean body mass calculation. But other than that, I'm going to actually just take their true weight to make life easy. And it's, give or take plus or 10 maybe or something like that.
Sure.
Um, that positive nitrogen balance is going to be there around, it's at an amount that's not probably up to a gram per pound. But keep in mind that a lot of the studies around this, again, we've talked about this, aren't on a trained bodybuilding athlete where nitrogen retention is being increased from, the androgens. We're training our dicks off. We require like a very large amount of recovery. So I like to
Yeah,
take
we're
those.
muscular on top, like on top
Yes.
of it, we're muscular. You know what I mean? Like,
Yes, yes. So, like at minimum, I would keep it at that 1 gram a pound, but that's not going to cause GI distress. I wouldn't go lower than that, but I wouldn't go as high as like I wouldn't go crazy with it because you will experience some of that.
I think that that's even low, to be honest with you.
I think it's
I,
low. I do think it's low. That's why I said no. No
yeah,
lower than
no,
that.
I'm with you. No, I was in agreement. Like I don't, my floor is even higher than this. Usually, as a standard, I'm thinking like 1 1/3 grams per pound, like 1.33, right? And then it's also just dependent on like the whole context, like how much gear is this person on? How hard do they train? How much volume are they doing? How big is the person? How big do they need to be, or how big do they want to be? And then the limiting factor is going to be the gut. Like how I am honestly I've shifted my opinion on this several times as I've gone through this whole journey, and now I've kind of come back to the point where I would like to throw as much as I can at someone from whole foods up to the point of it really disrupting their stomach.
Yeah,
Um,
because
Up to the point of it disrupting their stomach, but also I probably will never go beyond 2 grams per pound. So like if I can get you to an even 2 per pound, I'll do it. And if it settles, like if it agrees with your stomach, great, we'll leave it there. Um, but I'm gonna go up to that. I'm gonna go as high as I can before it like messes up someone's stomach. I just think the more the better, up to a certain point of GI issues. But I mean, if we want to talk studies, there's been countless studies on the idea that um, like when calorie standardized across the board, when a surplus is driven more so by excessive protein versus the other two macros, there's clear composition improvements from the
yeah,
people that are quote unquote overusing protein,
yeah,
um,
yep.
which
It's almost like
leads
an insurance policy if you keep it high, right?
100%,
Like,
100%.
yeah, if some's going to waste, okay, that's fine, but like,
Yeah,
it
that's
doesn't need
fine.
to be excessive, right? Like,
I don't think it needs to, like you said, like, I think back in the day, I think it was commonplace for guys to eat like a pound of meat at a meal 6 times a day, which is like, if you're talking about, 8 ounces of chicken is anywhere between, 55 to 65 grams of protein, depending on how you're calculating it. Now you're talking about a pound per meal. You're talking about like 130 plus grams of protein per meal 6 times a day. That's, 700 something grams of protein. I think that's excessive. For guys that are, again, I'm talking about guys that are enhanced, that want to be as muscular as they possibly can. They're on all the bells and whistles in terms of PEDs. They are training super hard, super high volume. I'm thinking 450 to 500 grams of protein most of the time.
yeah, I think it's important to make the point of like, is that from protein sources or is that a
That's total,
total? That's
total.
right. And that's what I mean. So, like, yeah, if that was from chicken, holy shit, because
No,
now
that's
we
a
got
fuck
200
ton.
grams of
No, no.
trace,
Yeah, yeah,
proteins as well. So, yeah, I do like to look at it as a whole
yeah,
picture because you're getting plenty of trace protein, especially when calories are to
yeah.
the point where someone's eating that many grams of
That
protein.
much
Their calories
rice,
yeah,
that
their
much.
calories are 5,000, right? So they're
Yeah,
getting 100 grams of protein at least a day from starches and things.
yeah. Yeah, but no, I think this idea of like all we need is 1 gram per pound.
Fuck that.
Um, no, fuck that is right. Yeah. Not if you want to be as big as you possibly can. I liked what you said about it basically being an insurance policy. It's like, why not? Like you
Why not?
go way too, if you way overshoot carbs, you could end up being diabetic, you could end up being overweight. You way overshoot fats, your triglycerides are going to be terrible, your cholesterol is going to be terrible, and you're going to end up overweight. I can't say that any of those things in terms of like overshooting protein.
Yeah, I mean, at those like pound a beat per, like you're gonna
I
probably
mean,
get some
that's
kidney distress things,
those are
right?
crazy scenarios, right? But I mean, like, 8 to 10 ounces, or yeah, 8 to 10 ounces per meal, I think should be like, if we're talking about a big enhanced muscular bodybuilder that wants to get even bigger, like go up a weight class or something, like, yeah, like expect to eat a lot of fucking chicken and steak.
I think if you're like pushing the limits with like you're flirting with the line of overtraining too, that is more applicable. But
Yeah,
like say flip it around and it's like prep and like you referenced a minute ago, you're going in there to basically keep the muscle alive
yeah,
and fatigue is being managed highly. Like maybe I will drop protein lower in those cases for the certain individual that is having some cravings. To I might take out 50 grams of protein to put in 50 grams of carbs from cream of rice with their last meal, so they have a little better sleep. Where
yeah,
they get that sweet tooth,
totally.
craving out of the way. So, like every single question we're going to answer, it depends, right?
I'm with you though. There are points, like I've heard people that say that, and in some situations this is correct, but I've heard people say as a black and white statement, they never reduce protein. And I can't say the same. There are times where in contest prep, it's like, knowing this person's psychology, knowing how hungry they are, all this stuff, like, you know what? They were eating 10 ounces per meal. Like, I'm just going to lower that. I'm going to, like, we're not at any loss of losing muscle. Like
Sure.
they're still training, they're still eating a lot of protein, they're still on drugs. Like I'm just going to lower this and use this like use protein as the calorie reduction, because if anything it was probably high for what the circumstance was.
They're not going to really miss that versus if
They're
you
not
took
going to miss
away
it.
a cup of rice, they'd be like, oh, fuck.
That, or you take 2 ounces of protein off someone's meal and tell them, like you said, now go have 50 grams of oats before bed. That's going to make a world of a difference to somebody that's really hurting in a contest prep or in a diet.
Yeah. So I kind of contradicted myself there, and like sometimes in prep I will keep it higher, but
No.
in those in that mental, in those last 4 weeks, and you want a little bit of, something that I love making that last meal before bed a little bigger to
Yep.
foster a nice little drop in cortisol and like try to encourage some better sleep. So, all these things have application in the right, situation. So
No, I don't think it's contradictory at all. Like there are times where, yeah, like in general, it makes sense to be high protein, like compared to, there are guys that do modest protein all off season, 5 or 6 ounces. I hear some guys doing for the sake of doing more carbs. I think if that's how your off season was set up, you're probably going to want to go higher protein once prep rolls around. Now, if you were the other way around and you were doing 10 to 12 ounces of protein all off season, at a certain point in prep, it's probably going to make sense to lower this if it means being able to sustain some of the other macros. You know what I mean? Like, especially like you said, you let somebody have like a bowl of oats with some nut butter mixed into it before bed. Like that might change the whole game for them. You know what I mean?
yeah, put a
That, or
little.
guys are doing ninja creamies before bread. You put some peanut butter in one of those bitches, dude. Like that can be a game changer for people.
Oh yeah, yeah. So it all is context dependent.
If you could only use 3 super subs for the rest of your life, which 3 would they be?
Are we okay? I need some clarification. So we need to make some rules. Androgens only, PEDs in
Super
general.
subs. Yeah, I say let's make it as we have to be as creative as possible, and it doesn't change like per the phase or anything. It's the rest of your life. Three compounds the rest of your life.
Ooh, testosterone.
Gotta be one. Yeah.
Ooh. Masteron.
Yep. It's got to be GH, right?
Clenbuterol.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm going Clan over GH because
Okay, just save it for prep. Yeah.
I would really like to have that for
I hear you. I hear you. Man, being a tall, lanky white dude, I think I'm sticking with GH. I love test and mast. I was on the same page with you for those. I think with test, GH, and mast, even if I have to work a little bit harder in prep, I need that to continue to look like a bodybuilder. I think it will pay dividends. It'll help a little bit in terms of fat loss as well, but I think it will help the visuals enough to where I think it's worth keeping in. I just love to be on it, to be honest with you.
I
I don't
can
know
get
that
with
there's
you.
anything I love more than being on like high dose GH.
Yeah, I mean, I can get with you there, man. It was like the game changer for me going to the open as far as
Yeah.
I don't like I never had pop. Like I was just like a
No.
street Caucasian bodybuilder. And like when I kept GH high, like things were rounder.
Bro, I went from 192 to 224 in 3 years. And it's like what nothing else changed that. I was always eating and training. You know what I mean? Like
And there it does really do a good job composition wise in like a reverse and all
bro, it's
these.
awesome all the time.
I know.
It's the best.
I
And
like
it's
your answer. I like my
yeah.
answer. I think they're both good.
No, I'm with you. I'm totally with you. Honestly, I may get into that hypothetical contest prep and then wish that I had kept some clan in. There's a lot. There's a lot. The thing is, like, it's a tough one because there's a lot of extras that go into contest prep that I really like having that play little to no role in the off season though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know.
So tough. Let's say test is a given.
Okay, so three on top of that. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. So yeah, mast, clean. Would it be GH? Let's see. Yeah, it'd have to be because like I don't even think anything else is totally like I don't even need it. I don't even really use anything else. And
Right.
like we've had the trend conversation, so it's like
Right.
yeah, it's those three for me, and they're pretty much GH maybe drop pre-contest, it may not, and then Clen would only be in prep. But the three GH Bast and Test are going to be used 365 days a year.
I think I may, just for the sake of conversation and just to be devil's advocate, let's say, I think I may on that list, I may swap out the Clen. I'll give you the Clen back, and I'll take thyroid medication.
Okay, is that a super sup? Because like fuck.
I guess, man, it's something exogenous. I think about it as a super sub.
Okay, I would probably put that
I
on
don't
my
have a
list.
prescription. I don't have a prescription for it, right?
I
So,
do. I do have one, but
well, then it
if
doesn't count. That you got a different list than me.
fair enough. if
But
if I had to though, I would flip out GH for that because I think it's vital.
it is vital because at some point it's going to slow down, and your
Yeah,
efforts are just not going to go as far. Like you can do all the work, and it's not going to look like it.
yeah,
And at a certain point, then not only are your efforts not going to go as far in terms of returning the visuals, but you are going to feel like shit.
bro, you feel like shit, and like I love how it makes you feel when you're growing too. Like I think having
Yeah.
that standardized and not varying up and down based on what you're doing at the time, I think that's.
It's great
I'm
for
a
composition in the off season. It can be
yeah,
great if
dude.
you're running high dose GH in the off season.
Like I'm a stressed out motherfucker, so like my
Yeah.
cortisol would fuck my thyroid all to hell. I know that, so like I need it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good one. That was a good question.
I like that. That's good.
Let's see, what time do we got? How long have we been on? An hour? I know we
We
talked
can
for a
do
bit, maybe
yeah
50 minutes.
we can do another for sure or two.
Okay. As a hypothetical, say sleep is consistent in both scenarios. Is cardio better as 40 minutes fasted or 10 minutes after four different meals? to
I mean,
to be fair, this was I did like a supplement giveaway when I asked for these questions,
yeah,
and I said give me questions or topics to discuss on the podcast.
okay, it's
So
fine.
I had people that wrote in, everyone wrote in multiple because they wanted a chance to win the supplements.
So
And
yeah,
so I think two people thought about it as like, what can I ask to get these guys talking? You know what I mean?
yeah, it's creative for
Yeah.
sure. I mean, you'd be a fucking psychopath to do 10 minutes after a fucking meal, but
Right.
yeah, I mean, I honest, and I will answer even if those were equally productive, which I actually don't think they would be, because I'm an advocate of fasted cardio for the fact that if lipolytics are in play,
Me
you
too.
are going to get more out of fasted cardio than fed cardio. Period. Caffeine on a fasted intake, yohimbine on a fasted intake, even clenbuterol
Clenbuterol.
on a fasted intake. If you're using an
SLU.
SLU, if you're using an albuterol or an ephedrine, all of those things in a fasted state, GH in a fasted state,
Yes.
all those things are going to free up more fatty acids to use for energy opposed to glucose. So yeah, I mean fasted for sure, and yeah, again, you just be a psychopath. That would be very
especially
difficult.
he especially he mentioned like sleep is consistent either way. The only time in a prep setting where someone is enhanced, they're using all this
I
other
like that
stuff.
they said that. Yeah,
The only time that I will ever consider changing the schedule for the cardio, because otherwise when I get someone in contest prep, their goal is to be on stage and looking great. I write specifically, this must be fasted. The only time I will change that is if someone's sleep is terrible or they work shifts or they're already getting up at 4 a.m. to be at
they don't
work on
literally
time.
have time to do
They
it.
do not have time to do it fasted in the morning without it like big time compromising their sleep.
Everything.
Then I will just say at that point, do it whenever. Do it when it's
Okay.
most convenient because it
Yeah.
doesn't make a difference. I think the only other time where it may make some slight difference would be after the last carbohydrate meal of the day, because then it's just going to bring your blood sugar down faster than it would have otherwise, and then it's not going to, on in theory, it's not going to come back up quite as high because your carbs are. So I'm thinking most of the time that's like your last meal.
I would be so afraid of that, like making me wake up at 12 in the morning wanting to eat
Yeah,
everything in the fucking house. I know a
yeah,
lot of guys will do that. A walk would have application or something like that, some
yeah,
form of, but
yeah,
you can kind of simulate that too post workout, right?
yeah.
Especially if intra carbs aren't around anymore.
What are
Now
you
we
saying? Like simulate almost like a fasted state after training?
that would be my next.
100%,
That would be my next
100%.
option, and that's what I will do for that individual who literally can't do it in the morning. Is they train at night. Okay, no interest in play. Like post workout, do your cardio.
Yep. Yeah, and that's going to be, I think, most convenient for people too. Like it's
Yeah,
one trip to the gym, they knock it all out. Most people don't have cardio equipment at home, so you just knock it out while you're there, and then it's done and over with. I think that's totally fine. And we've seen people that do that. I know for a long time, I can remember hearing different clients, from Chris Aceto and then also Andrew Vu, who's very similar to Chris because Chris helped him for a long time. Um, will say like, I like cardio in a fasted state, whether that's in the morning or after your training.
yep,
So
yeah,
they're viewing it very similarly, like you mentioned.
yeah. And like if I get to the point where I feel like fasted's kind of taking too much time, or like I need to, the second option is like fasted and then also
Yeah,
post workout.
yeah, for sure. Especially when, or if you're doing a lot of cardio, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like to
that's what
me,
I
if you're doing, I used to think about it differently. I used to think about it as an hour as a breaking point. Like anything more than an hour, I'm going to split it. I think for myself personally, I may even lower that. Just being heavier, and
45 minutes or
I was
something.
going to say 45 minutes. Just the heavier and bigger that I've gotten, I think there might be a benefit from like how fatiguing it is.
I
If you
think so
don't do
too.
it all at once, like an hour straight on the stairs when you're 260 something pounds is pretty wild. So uh
Uh, I could do it.
um hmm. You know what, that might be it. I don't know that some of these are
Weird ones.
yeah, I just don't know that I think they're people got a little lazy and they were just trying to get submissions in.
Fair enough.
All right, here's one. Maybe it can be quick and we can end it on this. One thing that you would change about bodybuilding, or something that you would like to see come back into the sport.
I feel like this should be obvious. Uh, yeah, let's
I'll go.
see.
I would like to see standardized black backdrops come back.
That's a really good one.
Just across
Less
the board, every stage is
tacky
just a
stages.
black, it's just a black curtain behind the athletes, because we're all there because of the athletes. So let's
Yeah,
highlight them and make them look as best as possible. And then we can
put those
talk
side
about
banners
our
if you want to put the supplements.
sponsors and promoters and everyone else elsewhere.
I love that one. That's really good. I think I was like thinking more along the lines of like the media side of things,
Yeah.
um, and like how like. But I feel like there's such a people don't understand there's a divide between like fitness, which is mass now, and then there's
Yeah.
still
Yeah.
body. There's still body, but there's still you and me who,
Yep.
yeah, we're on social media, but like it's very much being done so the same way it was in the 90s and the
Yeah.
2000s, like, and people think that bodybuilding has changed. It's like, no, but fitness is more relevant, and like those guys are doing this, that, and the other, but and some merge, the line between competing and content and things like that, but yeah, I don't really know, man. I like the backdrop one. That one's good.
I
um
don't think it's changed. I think the thing is, it's like you mentioned, it's spread. It's so easy. It's such a low point of entry to get into fitness or considered to be in bodybuilding. Like there's fit
yes,
model, there's bikini, there's men's physique. not to
Yeah,
knock these divisions, but the barrier for entry is very, very low. The
but there's
standard is
still,
very low.
and then there's still the open guys that are like,
Right.
and that's
Even
if
the
you view
classic guys, dude. The classic guys are big and impressive. Like it's I view that I almost if we're gonna group them in different tiers, I do think about classic and bodybuilding together more so than like men's physique, bikini, fit model, because it still takes time. Like you very rarely see someone that trains for, you know, 18 months and then is immediately like a classic physique, fully developed champion. You're just not really seeing it.
no, I mean, how many guys were great bodybuilders before they came to classic, right? It is one and the
Right.
same, absolutely.
Right.
So yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, I don't know, man. I'd have to think on that one.
Yeah. I think if I had to add anything else, um, this is like a bigger kind of philosophical thing in terms of like media or whatever. But I wish that there was more of an attitude where people's credentials or merit were considered when they were giving advice and whether or not to listen to someone.
That thought crossed my mind too. It's like I wish there was some kind of like way to like make that.
It's not a there's never going to be like a certification or something like that. I just mean as a general attitude. Like
Yes, yes,
when we were coming up, it was like, okay, like I started at I have it written down somewhere. I think I was 143 pounds my first day in the gym. So, you know, a couple months in, maybe I was 160, whatever. At that point, you know, I'm a couple months in, I'm 160 pounds. At that point, if I had access to the internet, I'm not going to take advice from someone else that's 160 pounds if my goal is to be 280 pounds. I'm going to go to someone in my gym or someone on the internet or whatever that's 280 pounds or 260 pounds and say, and try to find out what they think about this process that I'm embarking on. I'm not going to listen to someone that hasn't even remotely gotten to where I'm hoping to go. That's just asinine to me. And it's common practice in our industry at this point.
it is. Yeah, yeah, it's really bizarre. I don't know.
So I would like to see that come back where there's a little bit more respect given to the people that have earned their stripes and um, have walked the walk. I think that there's something to be said for someone that has already physically done the things that we're theorizing about. Like, oh, like, you know, textbooks and studies say this, but it's like, okay, but I did this already in real life. Like I can show you physically in person that I did this already. This isn't a theory that you put into a spreadsheet. I think there's just way too much of like mental masturbation going on amongst these groups online where everyone's obsessed with like outsmarting one another and coming up with the most optimal way. And it's like, man, like you said, real deal bodybuilding is no different than it was in the 90s. Like the people that are really doing it, the people that are really putting on muscle in the off season and then really getting stage peeled and presenting like big complete physiques on stage are doing the exact same things that people were doing in the 90s. It's
Yeah,
no different. It's not rocket science. It doesn't happen in a textbook. It doesn't happen in a spreadsheet.
no, there's so much more value in experience than reading something and knowing data, right? So, and if you can do both, then you're going to be damn good. But
No,
um,
and I think those are the people that rise to the top is the people that can kind of take what's applicable from all sides and
yes,
move
merge,
forward with
yeah,
that. I feel like you know, not to pat ourselves on the back, but I feel like you and I are both two people that are trying to kind of mend those fences and kind of bring it all together. But
absolutely.
you know, the idea that I hate to sound like a hater or an old head, but man, it just every single day I laugh to myself as I look at my phone where there's 170-pound expert online that has 250,000 Instagram followers and 400 paying clients, and all of them are paying this person and following this person for their knowledge on growing muscle. It's like, I'm sorry, what?
I
What
know.
has this person done? In what
Yeah,
world?
I know. You just have to like let that. It's so easy. Like some guys get pretty bent out of shape about it, but it's just like
Like me.
it is what it is, man.
It
I know.
is. It
I
is what
know.
it is. But in terms of what I would like to see come back, I think
Yeah.
just in general, forget me ranting about it. I think in general, I think it would serve a lot of good to the overall feel of the community, and it would serve a lot of good to these people wanting to improve their physiques if they
Yes.
just like cut out some of the bullshit and
I've had
like
so many guys come to me from somebody who did one show and then they coached them for a year and they're like, wow, fuck, I wish I'd came to you earlier. You know, it's like, yeah, because like you got coached by somebody who was just taking your money.
you got coached by somebody that did one show, but they have a huge following on social media and they get, 30,000 views on a reel because they know how to, edit it and post it up on Instagram. Like you got played by a fucking con man is what happened.
Yeah. Yep. I
So
know. Good marketers. A lot of good marketers
a
out there.
lot of good marketers, way more good marketers than there are good coaches. I'll say that.
Yes.
And you get what you pay for, man. Like there's so many times too I hear, oh well, I went with so and so. You know him? Nope, never heard of him. Yeah, no, he's a local guy. He was only 150 a month, and he held me all the way through. And he was at the show. Oh, how'd you do? Not so good. Oh, well, how'd you look? Well, I think I could have been better. Well, there you go. You get what you pay for. So
It's like nothing.
uh,
It's like anything else. Yeah.
that's it. All right, I think that's a good spot to wrap it. And then next week I'll probably have to ask for more questions. But
Yeah.
um, all right, guys. For Austin Brown, I'm Joseph Percher. This was the One More Rep podcast. Until next week, we are out.